The other day, I finished off some new additions to my Screaming Ravens army, and as I was inspecting my handiwork, a thought crossed my mind. Has my painting actually improved? I'm pretty happy with how these models have come out, but I don't think I'm any happier with them compared to how I recall feeling when I did my first models. This is, I think, normal. As time goes on and you get more confident in your ability, your standards also increase. So what I consider fine now is of a higher caliber than what I would have considered fine in the past. But is it? Conventional wisdom says, yes, of course, idiot. Practice makes perfect. And although I haven't actually painted that many models in my time back in the hobby, I do feel like I am more confident as a painter. It's been nearly 4 years now, and I've not spent any time reflecting back on the journey I've taken so far. Not just as a mini painter, but also as a player of the game, and even just as a YouTuber and the videos that I've made for this channel. So I think now is a good time to reflect and see if I've gotten any better, or if I'm actually just still bad at stuff. These are my latest models, a 3-man Bladeguard veteran squad. After completing this Yoshi-themed jump intercessor, except the base, I got to spin the wheel once again to find out the model I was next going to complete. Result was Yoshi again, because I forgot to remove it from the wheel. After doing that, I span it again and properly landed on the WoW-themed Bladeguard veteran. Previously, I didn't have much of a good plan for these guys, struggling to find many iconic sword and board characters to base them off. Fortunately, the comment section suggested that I could just base them all off of Link from Ocarina of Time with the different equipment. So that's what I've done. But instead of just doing one model and spinning again, I decided to do all 3 at once this time. So here are all 3. The Swords of Shields are based off of the Swords of Shields you get in Ocarina of Time. So Kokiri Sword, Kokiri Shield, Hylian Shield, Master Sword, and Goron Sword and Mirror Shield. The Tabards are based off the 3 tunics, Kokiri, Goron, and Zora. And thanks to quite a clever session from someone from a live stream, the Iron Halos are based off of the Elemental Arrows, with the rest of the model being standard Screaming Ravens, black with silver details. The main thing I'm happy with here is that they're actually very neat. This was a challenging model, especially with all the details on the trim and all the little details around the belt, and because I'm an impatient idiot who just wants to be able to use these toys and game and causes problems for my future self, the tabards and other details behind the chunky shields were a bit of a pain to get to. Whilst I'm fairly pleased with all of them, I'm especially happy with the Master Sword Hylian Shield combo with the Zora tunic. I think this is one of the best cloak type things I've ever done, which is a part of models I always struggle with making neat. And this was the model that I finished last out of the 3, so this will be the one that I will compare to my first painted model. My first ever painted model is, well, technically it's this one, but I don't think we really need to compare a model that I painted when I was 7 because look at it. I've already paid homage to this and it's not useful data. I want to compare it to my first model since starting again as a presumably more dexterous, patient, and intelligent adult. I misspelled intelligent in my notes here, so clearly I'm not that smart. I also misspelled. Look, I'm sure my 7-year-old self would have struggled here too. The first model I completed since returning to the hobby is actually the first model I completed for the channel. I had painted some stuff before, quite a few models here and there, but none of them are based, so I can't really claim they're completed. I have a fair few painted or partially painted rubrics and Scarab Cult Terminators for my Thousand Suns, but not only are they not based, I too am not based because I didn't do the stripes. I wasn't confident back then in doing them, but I think now I would be able to. So at least my confidence is improved. Or maybe it's just my ego has been overinflated due to being a YouTuber now. I do enjoy positive affirmations from strangers who like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to tell me how awesome I am. Hint, hint. Also, this was for the first video, so it makes sense if I want to compare my entire progress across everything, really. Also, this model uses a GW flying base, so I didn't need to do anything else to the base. So even though I didn't do any basing work for this model, it still counts as being complete.
You are technically correct. The best kind of correct.
This Reaver jetbike was one of 6 jetbikes complete for the first video from the first wheel, as of a total of 9 Reaver jetbikes that I own. This is where I really discovered that painting more than 5 or 6 models at a time in a batch is not good for me because I couldn't get those finals to be done before getting bored. And this is still the case over 2 years later. Also true 2 years later is I didn't finish the riders for most of these bikes because I claimed, oh, you know, they're a small thing, I can finish them later. There wasn't actually much I need to do on them. And to this date, they are still not complete. My inability to complete projects is something I still struggle with to this day, so far, not much has changed. Let's really have a look at this model. Whilst the highlights are cool and the contrast paint has done quite nice gradienting on the main body, it is all very messy. You can see a lot of kind of smudges here on the edge highlights, just bits where I've got massive splodges in random places. There's just a lot of places where I just haven't really cleaned up. This gun holster here, I don't even know if I was trying to do it brown or gold. It's all the colors that just overspill everywhere. Clearly just not a lot of care. On the gold especially, there's not really any shadows or highlights. I think I did use some wash here, but never really attempted to highlight it. There's a lot of reliance on contrast paint, and you can see that some of that really wasn't very neat. The back of the purple armor on the rider, though, is actually quite nice. I, for some reason, still can't really dry brush as well as I've done here. It's something that I've never really been able to improve on. But overall, whilst I'm fairly happy with it, you could definitely see that there's a lack of care and attention, or just maybe just a lack of skill that I really didn't have at the time. Let's compare that to the latest model, this Bladeguard Veteran. Obviously, very different model, very different techniques. The rider is a lot smaller, more difficult, but you can still compare and contrast some very basic fundamentals. You can still see some issues of being too overly aggressive with contrasts and some of the pooling, but not nearly as much. Main thing is it's just much neater overall. There's very few places where I haven't either cleaned up or had some overspill from one part to another. And you see, especially on the shield, the silver trim and the gold details with the red inside, I've done a pretty decent job, if I do say so myself, of cleaning that up. There is still some evidence of wash being put on too much and pooling. There's a bit of shininess on some of these shield parts, which is a bit annoying. But the contrast paint on the gun holster is a lot better. The black areas as well look a lot less flat, but because it is a lot more of the armor, it's something I did take a bit more care of. The details on the belt, for example, are a lot neater, a lot less overflow. Even the little belt buckles are actually the right color. The sword blade itself, it's not great. I think it's still a bit messy. I really need to learn how to do swords properly. One of my biggest issues is a lot of the things that really should shine just don't pop. The eye lenses look a bit flat. The iron halo, whilst it's the best of the three, I think, it's still a little flat because I didn't really do too much with it. And the shield gold, it's nice and it looks okay, but it just doesn't look as vivid as I'd like. Also, it actually has a base. My basing technique is fairly standard. It's not exactly very interesting, but just having a base makes it look a lot nicer. Painting isn't something I've sat down and gone, all right, I'm gonna learn to paint. I paint because, well, I kind of need to do it for tournaments and stuff, but also because I do actually enjoy it. Obviously, you're going to get better at something the more you do it. I mean, even though I cannot draw, I think my doodle animations, whatever you call these things, have improved. And I'm pleasantly surprised, looking back properly for the first time at my old models, that just the act of painting something, even infrequently, has at the very least got me better results. I don't think it's a drastic improvement, especially in terms of being more knowledgeable. I still don't know how much to thin my paint consistently. I don't even know if I'm using my wet palette correctly, despite looking at several tutorials. I've not properly practiced or learned to do stuff like dry brushing or edge highlighting, just kind of wing it each time. Obviously, each time I do wing it, I get a little bit better by making mistakes and understanding what I need not to do. I don't even know if I'm doing something completely egregiously wrong. Like, am I holding my brush right? My brush control is certainly better, but I still make a lot of mistakes. But again, painting isn't something I've sat down and tried to study because it just isn't something you really do. It isn't like learning an instrument or speedrunning where you could just put the reps in and repeat over and over. When you put paint on a model, you can't retry it over and over again until you get it. Unless you want each model to have like 10,000 layers of paint or constantly stripping them down and trying again. I've seen comments or seen people talk to me on streams about their reluctance to paint due to anxiety over ruining their models, and that is a valid concern. It is great nowadays that the internet has so many tutorials on anything you could possibly want, but I feel like it's also a bit of a double-edged sword, because the more you try and learn before you actually start to paint, the more you're trying to think about to try and get that first model correctly, because you have so much information in your head that you haven't ever put into practice. And there are so many examples out there of what you think it should look like and what you want it to look like that you get anxious that you're going to ruin the model. And the cost for getting it wrong is quite high when you ruin a model. I know that just start trying Lamau is a very daft advice, because it's not really going to get you over whatever mental block is preventing you from starting. I'd like to show you another model. This was a model that I completed before the Reaver Jetbike, but it was never based, so I can't consider it complete. It was a model that I had a lot of anxiety over. It was my first ever big kit bash and first ever monster that I'd attempted to paint. When I painted this model, at the time, I was really happy with it. I just kind of went, fuck it, and just gave it a go, despite not having much experience under my belt. This three-headed Thousand Suns Demon Prince uses an Ossiarch Bone Reaper Morghast as its base, some 3D printed wings, and Zangor heads. I really liked the kit bash, but the paint job is terrible. Again, to remind you, when I did this nearly 3 years ago, I was really happy with it, but now I just find it kind of embarrassing. The paint is so thick. Contrast is very rushed. There's no details or highlights in the face or the armor. It's all a bit messy, and there's just no detailing. I know now I could do a hell of a lot better than this, and I have. Despite not having painted a huge amount, having a huge amount of practice, look But the difference between this Demon Prince and Magnus, okay, yes, neither of them are base. That's something that hasn't changed. I'm a creature of bad habits. And one of those bad habits is saying, sure, I'll sort the base out later. I have some ideas. But the actual difference in quality of the paintwork is night and day. Yes, it is ruined this kit bash and this Demon Prince. I do not want to use it. I could restrip it and try again, but to be honest, I'd rather be doing new things. If I wanted another Demon Prince, I could probably do a better kit bash. If you're struggling with your painting journey and are anxious about starting and potentially ruining your first model, I want you to do me a favor. After this video is finished, and you've liked, subscribed, and commented, of course, because you're cool like that, go and paint a model. Drop whatever you're doing, go right now. If you were at work or school, why are you watching my videos? Clearly, you weren't paying attention to whatever that was, so drop whatever it was and go and paint a model right now. Try and find a model that you aren't very precious about. Or if you can't get to a GW store, grab one of them free minis of the month things. That might help as well. But even if not, just pick a model and paint it. Paint it to the best of your ability. Take your time. Use whatever tutorials you want and slap a base on there, however simple. Get a model done and then send me a picture of it. You can send it on the Discord in a channel I'll make for this, then forget about it and move on. Assuming that this channel is still around in a year's time, which I really hope it is, we'll do this again and see how much everyone has improved. I'm hoping that this solves two issues. One, you've now started painting. Congratulations. And second, you now have a point in time reference to show your improvement. If you're someone who has been painting for a while, post some pictures of your first models and your latest models to show your journey and talk about your experiences in the comments as well. Mini painting as a community has always been very welcoming in my experience, but there's an issue, as with all things on the internet, that we only see the very best. We don't see all the steps that it takes, just the outcome. The social media versus reality of everything extends to Warhammer as well. And I think it's good for new or inexperienced painters to really see that journey from other people like them. A not insignificant number of people have told me either in comments or my live streams that I encourage people to start this hobby. First of all, I'm very sorry for your wallet. And I do see the irony in trying to make a career out of something that requires funding from fans by making videos about a hobby that drains all the money from said fans. But hey, if you do have some spare cash, become a member or patron like this lot. It really is the thing that allows me to even attempt to do this full time. But also, seeing the tangible difference I'm making in getting people to enjoy the hobby or being someone to relate to, it just makes me so unbelievably happy and forever grateful that I can even consider this as a career. I said I'd take January off from job searching to try and make this a thing, and thanks to your support, I think this might actually work. Is it guaranteed to succeed? No, but if you like what I do and would like to give it a fighting chance, then thank you. Sincerely. I started making this video to explore how much I've improved at being a painter, but as with everything else in this unemployment arc, I went on a bit of a spiral into significant self-reflection. At least this time it wasn't fueled by am I still bad at stuff? Yeah, probably, but I'm not as bad. Unfortunately, Paul is not as bad at stuff isn't exactly a catchy channel name, and there's still plenty of stuff I'm bad at, so the name still isn't a lie. I still have a lot of issues with painting. I still have no idea about the 40k lore. I still overextend every game without fail, and every video there's still a section where I talk too bloody fast to the point where even I can't understand what I'm saying. But from what I've seen and from what I've read in the comments, sometimes that is what people need. They need someone to be bad at stuff, and I've never been happier in my life being that clown. Thank you, as always, for watching.